Welcome to Phoenix International Raceway for the Pro Indy 2000 series. And we're going to have a fantastic duel in the desert for you today. Second oval on our schedule. And we have a full room of almost 18 to 20 drivers. It should be a really fun one here this afternoon. We are in Avondale, just not too far away from Phoenix, this 1 mile racetrack. A little unique compared to other ovals. It has that dog leg with that open asphalt in the backstretch. Should give plenty of room for racing and passing. And it's also very flat around here. Not a lot of banking in these corners. Should be very tricky for the drivers. As you can see, it's a nice cool day, at least for Arizona. 68 degrees, the track temp 67, the ambient, and a light breeze. So a really nice day in virtual Phoenix. My name is Jonathan Burke. I'm joined alongside Tom Davis. I'm Maxton doing the camera work as well as providing us with some of the onboard cams. Stevan Ballo providing us with the TV cameras from Track Cams 22. And Tom, you were with us that first oval, saw a little bit of calamity in New Hampshire. What are you feeling about this race?
Well, like you mentioned, there's not much banking in some of the corners, so they've got to do more turning. There's also the option to go down onto the apron, the flatter part of the circuit, but obviously that means you've got to get back up as well. So there's lots of different strategies available to the drivers in terms of overtaking and car setup, but it's likely going to be close as ever because the slipstream is going to be absolutely crucial in these cars.
Yeah, and if you're running a really fast setup, low downforce, you really need that slipstream in order to get those moves done. You can get them done on the front straightaway going down into turn 1, but again, you can use that back straightaway and that dog leg to try and make some moves. And we have 70 laps here today, one of the longest races of the season. We're thinking maybe 1 or 2 cautions, but with this quality of split, we're not sure yet. It could be really good, but it could be, accident-free.
Yeah, it can go either way, can't it? It's a lot dependent upon which drivers you end up with in a given split. Are you going to end up with the Indy Pro drivers who come from that circuit background, or are you going to get the oval racers who are going to know exactly when to go for the move, exactly when not to? Sometimes, and often, you'll end up with a bit of both, and that can end up going either way. You can have the guys going for the moves that you really shouldn't be going for, but seem intuitive, or you can get the guys who really know what they're doing. They set it up for a few laps, and well, crucially, they know when to back out. I think it is.
As a person who stands as one of those oval people who sometimes hop in this room, I do understand how for the road people this can be frustrating because, you're used to running maybe that Indy fixed oval series where you have lots of downforce, so you have lots of power, you can make those crazy moves, but you don't have that much downforce on these Pro Mazda machines, and even when you're running a higher downforce setup, you're not going to be fast, you're going to be towards the rear of the field anyway. So it's coming down to really how you manage your track movement and you're really moving through traffic.
Yeah, exactly. There's the lack of downforce combined with that lack of banking means that you need to pick your line, and then you're going to be forced to stick with it because you don't have the turn-in ability to change it. So you need to be thinking 2-3 corners ahead all the time, and hopefully you'll be able to get the move done. But ultimately, you've already decided whether or not it's going to be made potentially a whole lap in advance. It really is that tight, and it's one of those skills that only comes with practice at an oval, doesn't it? You don't get this sort of driving and skill set from doing the classic kind of, as we would call it in the UK, the road tracks, our classic race circuits. You need to come here, you need to practice it, and it doesn't help that Phoenix in itself is a very unique oval.
Now, like New Hampshire and USA, which we'll be going to later in the season, both similar shapes, both kind of similar layouts. Phoenix is very unique in terms of short ovals because it's not like, Iowa, you have that long curved front straightaway, or it's not like Richmond, where you also have a curved front straightaway, but it's tighter in the corners. Like this open dog leg and the open areas in the apron, it makes it really difficult to drive, but also really unique in terms of the racing as we look at the session advancing, and hopefully we'll get underway here shortly. And row number 1, Andreas Elk with a 29.2, really fast. Olson Walsh, we've seen him really fast in the number 1 machine. He's starting P2. Jack Ashton, Woodzilla driver, rolls off P3, and Jason Owens rolls off in P4. Aaron Roofs in P5, and Marino Barrios in P6. Row number 4, Simon Fell and Paul Klein, two names we really haven't seen so far in this series. What can they do? Frank Newen kind of in the midfield. That's where he's been all season, but he's getting points. Still a threat in the point standings in 9th. Tim Doyle in P10. Andrew Barry in P11. Daniel Stilley in P12. Servi Seppa, we've seen him really good on the ovals and the road courses. Starting in P13, he's got places to make up. And Jan Durkix in the 14th position. Pierre Boudon in the number 18 in P15, and Luke Barb in the number 7 in P16. Pedro Campbell in the number 9. No time. These are the guys that, just not qualifying, choose to start a career in P17. Arturo Armo from Australia in P18. Now, rounds out your field. We do have 18 drivers in this field. The full room is 24, so we're going to get a full 70 laps of action all throughout the field.
We should, and keep your eye on Andreas Ike. He's entered 4 races this week, and he's won all of them. So if he gets an opportunity to just lead from the front, there's a reasonable chance that the guys just never get near him throughout the rest of the race. The other big guy, obviously Ashim Walsh, Jack Ashton, both of them right up there in the championship. They're both having good weeks, and in fact, Ashim Walsh actually leads this week's standings so far, so he might be able to put up a fight. Pace car
rounds turn 3. Should only be one pace lap around here since the track is 1 mile long. We have 18 cars all lined up. It's going to matter when that 2 machine goes. When does Elk go? He's going to have to try and time it up perfectly and break the draft. As pace car is in and we go green. He goes as soon as possible. Ashton looks to the inside of Walsh, and there's really no one to challenge that number 2 machine. Elk gets the lead, Walsh in second, Ashton in third as they fan out behind him. You can see those cones on the inside of the dog leg. You don't want to cross those or you're going to be in trouble slipping and sliding around. There's no grip in some places down there. As we go through 3 and 4, we're side by side in the midfield. Looks like we may get through clean through that first lap.
Yeah, it was a nice start from pretty much everybody on the grid. Notably Ashton getting up into third. He's right there with his championship rivals, Walsh and Ike. And as usual at the Oval, chaos behind as we're 2-3 abreast in places, but it's all just going to start settling down now as people play the long game, start to suss out where their opponents are strong, where they're weak, and ultimately where they're going to make the pass.
And be aware of this midfield. The top 5 looks like they're single file, but the midfield is a bit crazy. The number 14 coming inside the 8, that's Barros and Klein, and Roof's trying to defend them off, and yeah, they're trying to weave back and forth, just trying to find space. They don't want these leaders to get out to too much of a lead.
No, you can almost think of it a bit like cycling, can't you? Once that lead group gets away, they can all draft each other, and you're never really going to catch them as a single car. You need to work together at times with these Indy Pro 2000s, and it just creates a really interesting dynamic. Because here we go at the front. Oh, he was having a little bit of a look there, was Ashim Walsh.
And now he's going to dive to the inside of turn 3. Brave lifting the throttle and getting back on the throttle for Osteen Walsh. He passes Andreas Eek, but Eek is going to come back at him. He's going to have a huge draft down the front. But these two should really be warned about Jack Ashton, who just ran the fastest lap, until number 8 of Aaron Roofs ran the fastest lap. Now the top 5 are all kind of under a blanket single file. You can see them all in this frame right here. And now it's just going to kind of be a waiting game. When are you going to want to make that move? When do you set up that move? Here's the onboard from the Team Fordzilla driver. Going to be looking inside and outside. When does he try and make a move? He's kind of in this sandwich of where he needs to stay in third place, but maybe he doesn't want to push it too hard this early to try and get these front 2 cars.
No, it is a little bit of an awkward spot, isn't it? Because he's got people on his tail, so in a way, if he makes progress, those people are no longer hassling him, but at the same time, with these 2 fighting at the front, all they're doing is holding him up, pushing him back towards those 4th and 5th position cars. Andreas Ike back into the lead. That was another really nice move.
Seems like the place to get it done is going to be going down into turn 3, getting a run out of the dogleg section here, and then doing it again. Here comes Walsh again. They're just going to keep swapping back and forth, but Jack Ashton may take this opportunity to try and go for second. There was a brief window open, but Andreas shuts it really, really quickly. And Jason Owens and Aaron Roofs, we haven't really seen them towards the front, and here comes Eek again. Both of these two just want the lead and want it right now, and it seems like there's going to be no give or take. They're giving each other plenty of space, however, which is nice to see. No major accidents, hopefully.
If you're not careful, Ashton's going to have both of them. He was really quick and close for a second there through the dog leg. Just didn't quite get alongside, but if they keep doing this over and over, he is going to be there, and they are a little bit
Big
deep.
crash out of 4. You can see the smoke in the background. The pace car is out. The number 3 at Tim Doyle has towed it back to pit lane, so I'm assuming he's going to be one of the culprits involved. But the car is now slow up out of turn 2. And it looks like Andreas Ake was able to get the lead from Olsen Walsh. We'll see what happens when the pace car goes by. But they were all, the top 5 were almost all side by side. We get a replay right here out of turn 4. I mentioned this mid-pack might be a little crazy. Well, looks like it got a little crazy. That 16 goes below the apron and just massive, massive contact. Looks like from Paul Klein, Daniel Sedtelli. And here's an interesting thing. Olsen Walsh has come down the lane, and this has to be, I think, adjustment on the car.
It's an odd one, because he was right there. It's not like he seemed to be lacking any particular area. A lot of cars following him in, actually. 2, 3, 4 cars in the pit lane now, so maybe a few of them have noticed something that they can change and tweak, but that's unusual to see such an early pit stop.
Well, we saw this actually last time out at New Hampshire on the oval, where Joshua Chin came down and had a major adjustment to his car right as the caution came out, and then clawed his way back to where he pitted from in second. And Walsh is going to line up in P12. There was about 3 cars involved in that crash: Klein, Stelly, and Doyle. So it slims out the field a little bit, but it's still going to be a decent amount of cars to pass, as you have the likes of Andrew Berry, Frank Nguyen, Pierre Boudon, who are kind of regulars in this series, who really know what they're up against in terms of Olsen Walsh. I don't think they're just going to let him by easy.
No, and the risk with all of this, of course, is that you've suddenly left the man with 4 wins in 4 entries, Andreas Ike, at the front of the field. Is Ashton quick enough to stay with him if he's given free air, or was he just able to hang on due to the battling that was happening ahead of him? Because it's going to be absolutely crucial that Ike doesn't just get away and floor it, because if he can, then it could just be game over.
And a reminder, if you want to watch all the RaceSpotTV action, follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram. We do have some nice events going on this weekend, including one that I'll be commentating with some friends. The Ivor Endurance, 4 hours at Mid-Ohio. We also have Friday Night Primetime coming up after this with the IR01 class. Should be a fun race this week as we get lined up for the restart. And, you know, our director, Tyler Maxson, putting out that tires are invaluable here, but again, I don't know if you want to leave the man with 4 wins and 4 entries out at the front of the field, or you leave one of the points championship contenders in second by themselves to duke it out. But we'll see how Olsen Walsh can climb through the field as green flag is back out. 11 laps in, 59 to go. He gets a good restart. Ashton a little too far back to challenge, as again, single file restarts in this series, so a little less chaotic than the initial start, but just look back at that midfield. Walsh has already picked off Boudon. He's already back into the top 10. And he's looking inside in the dogleg. That's going to be risky. Risky on Frank Nguyen.
Ultimately here as well, he's going to be all surrounded by the guys that were in that mid-pack scramble that could easily have been involved in the earlier incident. And he needs to be careful not to get caught up in someone else's mistake when he's driving with the guys who ultimately weren't quick enough to be at the front of the field. All while saying that, Andreas Ike made the perfect getaway off the restart and already has 4.5 tenths, which is bigger than it ever was in the first stage of the race.
And the problem with maybe taking these newer tires is, one of the issues I think you're going to have is that you might burn up all this other grip getting past these cars. It looks like right in front of him, Nguyen goes to the inside of Durkix in the 17, and Walsh will gladly use Frank Nguyen as a little bit of a tow right there to get by that number 17 machine, move Walsh into 9th and Frank Nguyen into 8th, as now we go down the front straightaway, and we're already seeing guys get defensive. Down here goes the 14 and the 6. That's Burroughs and Barry side by side, and they're leaving each other plenty of space. It's good, respectful racing so far. Nothing too close besides that crash out of turn 4, but there we go, the little bit of a drift up right there from the 14 machine. Andrew Berry has to get out of it, and that's going to stack up everyone behind him.
Yeah, if he's still making solid progress here, the number 1 car. Another one picked off as he just goes for the inside line. He's able to carry more speed there as well, so he's going to close all the way up. onto Barrios, but not quite close enough to get the move done immediately, so he'll be trying to get yet another run. Nope, Barrios makes a small mistake, doesn't turn in quite as early as he would have liked to. That's another free place gained, but when he gets to the front of this little pack, he's going to have 2 seconds to close on his own, which is going to be no mean feat.
And it's going to be extremely hard when Jason Owens and Aaron Roofs are looking like they're going to be contenders maybe for this win, as the 16 just ran the fastest lap of the race. Olsen Walsh has picked off everyone and moved off into 5th position. Has gotten around Barry and Burrows, who have not really left each other since the start of the race. And here comes Frank Newen, who was quiet in those first 10 laps, but now he's going to start some progress as we look back at our leaders, Ike, Ashton, Roofs, and Owens. Everyone seems to be calm right now, but you got to think about maybe making a move, especially as those players wear out. It's going to be a lot harder later on in the run to really make those moves and hold the position.
Yeah, exactly. As you begin to lose the grip, you lose various opportunities as the line that you can take just narrows and narrows and narrows until eventually it's only 1 car wide. So there will be a perfect point to make the overtake. It won't actually be in the last couple laps. It'll be sometime before that, assuming there's no mistakes, of course, which is a very difficult assumption to make. At the moment, nobody quite close enough to make the overtake. And you can see behind, like we mentioned, Shane Walsh. He's just sticking with that previous group. The guys that he'd overtaken are now in his slipstream and able to stay with him. And the gap to this front pack has just kept on opening. It's 3/10 bigger than it was last time we mentioned it.
Yeah, Olsen Walsh either needs a caution or needs these 4 to start fighting heavily for the lead. And the other thing I think that held up that group as we look at a move, here comes Roth to the inside of Ashton. The other thing that held up that group is Barrios and Barry. For the first time this race have been separated by Frank Newen, but they were fighting the entire time. Walsh was making his way through the field as here the 8 machine of Ruffs down to the inside of Ashton. I don't know if he's going to be able to get the move done. They're still side by side. Andreas E kind of looking in his rearview mirror trying to figure out which car is going to go faster, and I think the 8 machine might be able to do it here. No, Ashton hangs tough on the outside, but now Ike is getting away and Walsh is starting to close ever so slightly. He's under 2 seconds now from the gap to Jason Owens, but he's going to need them to fight even harder as now Aaron Roofs is able to clear Jack Ashton.
Yeah, that was a whole lap it took Roofs to get that move done, which is never ideal to say the least. They were about half a second slower on that time round, and that's why the gap to Andreas Ike is about half a second. Back to Oshimov, also about half a second smaller than it was. So it's great for Oshim, not great for this 3 in positions 2, 3, 4.
Well, the nice thing is that Ike does not have anyone to draft with, so we get back to the midfield action. Looks like this is the number 15 of Simon Fell and Durkix fighting. Pierre Bourdon right behind them. They've fallen off a little bit of Frank Newen, but they're going to be still fighting it out for the points. This is the top 10, and we've seen some really good fights at the end of the top 10 all season long. You know, they're driving us. Here comes Pierre Bourdon down the inside. That was an aggressive and bold move. See a little bit of tire smoke there from Jan Dirks, but he's able to hold on. And Simon Fell is just praying these 2 just don't get too aggressive around him.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to have the person in front or just behind you spin off and collect you on the way through. So just hope that nothing like that happens, and I'm sure you'll be okay. Because ultimately, if there's fighting happening, you're probably favored if you're not in that fight.
Servi Sepper has now joined this party as well. And again, this is at the edge of the top 10. And for some of these drivers, against some of the lower ranked I rating or some of the lower ranked safety rating, a top can get you really good bonuses. We look back in the lead. They have caught Andreas Ika again, and Aaron Roofs looks out to the outside now. Is he going to try and make a move? He got the move done on Jack Ashton, and it took him a lap or 2, but if he tries to make a move on Andreas, it's going to stack all 4 of these drivers up. Look at how close he's getting to this wall. He's really trying to drive it as hard as he can into these corners. Oh, here we go. Jack Ashton has decided that he's going to go back for second place on Roofs. Coming out of turn 4, they're going to be side by side again. Aaron probably was not expecting Ashton to make a bold move like that, but after watching him in some of the other series, including the Ivor Club Cup and this one, it's not going to be easy to keep Jack Ashton behind you. He's going to stay side by side in turns 3 and 4. Roofs is able, I think, to stay clear of Jack Ashton. But Andreas is going to continue looking in his mirror and continue to be on alert, just in case these guys get another run. They close down that gap fairly quickly. And again, the more they fight, the more this might help Oshin Walsh. He's back within 2 seconds of the tail end of this draft.
That's where he wants to be, isn't it? In the little bit of the draft, just keep on following. That's all right. And ultimately, if you keep on following, there's enough time still in the race. We're not even at half distance. We're about to get what, maybe 2/5 of the way through, some awkward fraction like that. And this four is still very, very close together. And you feel like a fight is somewhat inevitable. Although Ashton is dropping away a little bit, isn't he?
I think the tires are wearing out. You can't really ride that close to these, to the rear wings of these cars without having to lose some of that front grip and the rear grip. Because right now, Roofs has gotten to the back of Ike. There is a lapped car ahead. I'm curious who that is. I think it might be Armro in the 11, but there are 2 cars, Klein and Doyle, who were involved in that first lap crash. Got her out on the track. Goes to the bottom. Roofs looks to the outside. He may try outside to inside, but he might leave the door open for Jack Ashton. Ashton looks to the inside, but there's nothing doing there. The top 3 remain in this order. But again, lap traffic could prove key. He's actually already pulled to the side. That's a nice little gesture there. I believe them the 10 cars. Ashton is closing now on Roofs. Goes to the inside of the dog leg. There's less than a tire, and they hit contact. Huge crash from the 8 machine. Back onto the racetrack he goes, and there's nowhere for everyone to go. Frank Newen is now involved. Oh my, how the tables have turned for the 8 car of Aaron Roofs. Just a touch from Jack Ashton and heavy, heavy impact. You can see here coming up out of turn 2. Roofs looks to the inside at Ike. Ashton goes below the surface, and just that tap from the wing, and pow! Nothing Aaron Roofs could do, and there's going to be significant damage to Jack Ashton. And then poor Frank Newen, just nowhere for the 13 machine to go. Another look at it here. See Ashton slow-mo looks to the inside. There's going to be a little bit of a touch of the front wing right there as Ashton comes back onto the racetrack, and then a little touch right there. Good job for Ashton to keep it out of the wall, but he's going to have damage. But my, oh my, that was a heavy, heavy impact. And in his midfield, Frank Newen had no idea. Just caught in the blind spot of the 14 machine. And now Andreas Ike has seen one of his top competitors out of this race. This pit road is open. Pierre Bourdon on back has now come down the pit lane. As this is Frank Newen. He's got the 14 machine of Barros in front of him. He can barely see the stopped car, and there's just nowhere for him to go. He's got the inside with a car, and also the dark colors of that 8 machine doesn't help. And now there's the front tire and the front wing, and around goes a major championship points player, and he's going to have to stay in pits for significant repairs. Now Ike at the front, and this actually helps Austin Walsh, who was kind of minding his own business, really, running in P4, was able to work his way up through the field after this pit stop, and now, curiously, Jack Ashton has pulled on the pit lane after some of the other lead cars have already pulled on their pit lane, so this is going to be a little bit of an interesting play here from Ashton. At the halfway point, he's going to restart somewhere around 13th or 12th position, and now Owens and Walsh are now standing on the podium.
In terms of Ashton, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because normally you want to go in straight away, make sure you lose minimal places, but this time around, you know, he's waited to see what everybody else's strategy is, and I suppose it means that you can play the opposite to everybody else, which has got some advantage to it all the time. You know, you hear a lot in F1, do the opposite of what the guy ahead does, so there is something to be gained there, but ultimately, this late in the race, tires are important, so I'm surprised you wouldn't just dive in straight away.
I think he just kind of wanted to catch Ike, Owens, and Walsh maybe off guard, as I think Walsh thought about it. Nah, he's just playing games. Loving flirting with that inside pit wall and the pit commitment cone that in the NASCAR races sees many, many cars hit it, unfortunately. So it looks like lights are out. We're going to go green this time by. Jason Owens has been quietly running in P4 most of the time, is now in P2. with Andreas Eek, a man who started 4 times this week, has won 4 races, and Olsen Walsh right behind him. So he's going to have to do a whale of a job, I think, to keep these two at bay. But he's been doing a really good job so far, staying inside the top 5. Andrew Berry and Mario Barros have not been able to get away from each other, have been fighting since the drop of the green flag, are now in 4th and 5th. This should be an entertaining restart. What can Jack Ashton do from P13 on fresh rubber?
Well, he's got to come back through the field. At this stage, there's no guarantee of a second caution, so he's going to have fresher tyres than both Ike and Walsh, but Walsh is arguably in the best position because he has fresher tyres than the 2 cars ahead of him, and he's already right on the back of them. Ashton's got a lot of work to do.
Another thing for Ashton is that he pitted after several other cars pitted. Pierre Bourdon is the first one on fresh tires. We go back to green flag racing. Ike, brilliant jump, able to get a half a second a gap back to Jason Owens, as now he's going to be immediately under fire from Olsen Walsh. There's almost no hesitation, I think, from the one machine as he head through the dog leg. Huge draft, gets a little bit of oversteer, but I think Walsh is going to get the position here. Outside, taking that wider line, he's going to get that late apex, or no, he's just going to fly. Oh no! Elka's spun, he's collected Walsh into the wall. Go the 2 race contenders. What has happened to Andreas Eek? It was all by himself.
I mean, I'm a little bit lost for words. He's been absolutely perfect all the way through this race. Maybe just got caught out on cold tires. It looked as if the rear got away from him rather than the front slipping, which is what you'd expect from tire wear. Here, we're going to get another look at it. So he comes through, obviously all these corners very, very quick. There's the dog leg into the next corner, and yeah, it's going to start to go, isn't it? When does it move? There. Maybe just as he was trying to get on the power, back out of the corner again. That is an odd place to lose it, though, for someone as experienced as him.
Well, good news for him is that his fellow competitor, Olsen Walsh, didn't come back out on the track and hit him, but it looks like he's hit the wall in a way where there shouldn't be too much damage, although when we saw there was some rear suspension. So here is Olsen Walsh. He's trying to look on the outside of Jason Owens, who is now the leader. And Andreas just loses it right there. Like, the rear end just comes out, and there's really, what do you do if you're Olsen Walsh? You try and go to the inside, but you can't do those sudden movements in these cars. There's not a lot of downforce, so he spins it around, and let's see how much damage he has. He spins it just, I think, the front wing. It looks like his suspension is okay, at least on the front, and then he's going to have some rear wing damage for good measure. But yeah, that's changed the whole outlook of this race. It's now Jason Owens, who was just kind of minding his own business for these 39 laps, is now the leader.
I'd be careful, though. Jack Ashton will be hungry. He'll know that it's those 2 are out. And now he's already inside the top 10 with 30 laps to go. I reckon Ashton could be perfectly placed for this one. But that incident is so unfortunate, isn't it? Because Walsh has avoided Ike. He's gone to avoid him. There's no contact between the 2 cars, but the rears just come around during that process of evasion. It's so close to going well. He's in the lead of this race. It's his to lose. And instead, he was in the pit lane. He's now back out, but he's in 12th position.
Yeah, Andreas does probably have suspension damage. We saw when it collided with the wall, the rear end, it appeared to have broken, but a little bit of technical issues from iRacing and on our end as well. We're not really sure, but there really is significant damage. Andreas still remains on pit road. Same with Aaron Ross, who had that terrible crash just a few laps ago, and Daniel Statelli, who was also involved in that first caution, as well, still on road. 31 laps down. Paul Klein and Tim Doyle have returned to the race. They're several laps down in P16 and 17, respectively. Frank Newen, after getting collected in that second caution, is in P13, 1 lap down. We have 12 cars on the lead lap, and Olsen Walsh is now the last car on the lead lap with fresh tires and repairs. Ashton has fresh tires in P9, but Jason Owens has run a very quiet race, and he's been faster than Andrew Berry and Barros, because it's not like he was in that mid-pack a few seconds behind. He was fighting with these front runners the entire time so far.
He was playing it cleverly, wasn't he? At no point did Jason Owens look as if he was, I don't know, look as if he felt the need to get the move done, you know. He never felt hurried or as if he was in a rush. He just sat there quite happy. If someone went out wide, sure, he would have come underneath them, but he was never forcing the issue, and everyone else has made the mistakes anyway, and suddenly Jason is at the front in prime position to lead the field away for the final 30 laps.
So a complete lap 31 this time by Jason Owens is currently the leader. He is yet to lead a lap under green flag. He inherited due to a mistake from Andreas Ick. He's been running in the top 5, and he takes the green flag and gets a really good proper restart to try and jump Andrew Berry. But Berry has had company all day in the form of Mariano Barros in the 14, as now we look back in the midfield, and these are guys that have been scrapping it out, I think, for the top 10, are now going to be fighting for the top 5. We have Simon Fell in 4th place, Pierre Bourdon sitting in 5th position, and Bourdon's got Servi Seppa, who is a brilliant overtaker right behind him. But here comes, contact! There goes the 18 into the wall of Pierre Bourdon. Jack Ashton narrowly avoided it, and there's another car to the inside wall. Looks like the 13 of Frank Nguyen again. Just nowhere for him to go, but whoo, that was close for a lot of people.
Yeah, Pierre, he's just understeered, not managed to get the car turned in, whether that's old tyres or cold tyres, either way, not got the grip he thought he had, touches the wall, and he's rebounded across the track into an unfortunate driver, to say the least.
Jack Ashton, I think, he gets fresh tires, made it to come down pit road for a change of pants, because that was a solid, like, Coach Brown situation. You see a car just bounce off the wall like that, and what about your Servi Seppa, who was right underneath them? Both of those drivers an excellent job to avoid what could have been disaster for both of them. And now Ashton sits in 6th place. He dispatched of Barp and Campbell pretty quickly. Seppa now sits in 5th place, and he's been kind of quiet, minding his own business throughout the race. But now it's another car out of contention in Pierre Bourdon. I just mentioned he was fighting on the edge of the top 10. Was all the way up in P5, and again, just the understeer just caught him out.
Yeah, I think he maybe saw the opportunity to get a really nice result. Overstepped it a little bit. He had somebody on the inside, so didn't want to lift for risk of losing that position. Here, we got it on board. That's Pierre just up ahead, so he already knows that this car's coming. It's going to try and have him, Servi Seppa, and they're just not willing to back out of it, not willing to lift off. He's come off. Tell you what, Seppa's gotten away with that there. I thought that would look a little bit more violent from his point of view, but fortunately, the rebound sort of neutralized to some extent by its own bounce.
Yeah, when these types of cars get in the wall, they don't violently bounce off a lot of times, although I'm already reminded that Aaron Roofs violently bounced off the inside wall back onto the racetrack earlier in this race. But sometimes you get lucky and they stick up there, and at least for Seppa, it got lucky, but when he's down, he almost collected Jack Ashton as well. But for the time being, like for Jason Owens, that was a really picture-perfect restart, and I think he needs to do that again in order to really have a chance to take home the win here. But again, the problem is that we keep having these yellows. Field's going to keep grouping up, and it's going to bring him closer and closer to these guys that were already at the front, like Ashton and Walsh.
Yeah, and even in that period, Ashton has, of course, made up places. He's now sitting P6, whereas previously he was P10. Walsh is now P9, so both of those guys are coming. And to be honest, if we have this amount of time worth of racing laps, obviously there could be more cautions, they could both get there near the end of this race.
The other problem for Jason Owens is these are the same set of tires he started on, which he's done a whale of a job to keep pace in these tires. Again, we've had a lot of caution laps, but he's done a good job keeping pace. Ashton is on much fresher tires, and Walsh is even on fresher rubber. So this is going to be an exciting end to this race. And again, what can Andrew Berry and Barros do? They've been stuck to each other like glue this entire race, and they haven't taken each other out yet, so good job for both of those drivers, but they've been aggressively fighting for those positions.
Well, what I would like to see is Berry get in front of Owens on the restart, if I'm honest. If Berry gets in front of Owens, you can guarantee Barrios will try and follow him, and I think it would be absolute chaos, but fantastic for us to watch. So there's my wish to the racing gods.
And just a reminder, before we head back flag racing, you can always follow us at RaceSpotTV for more sim racing action. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram for all of our content. And a reminder, right after this, we might actually go into their stream a little bit, depending on how many more cautions we have. We do have Friday night primetime at Phillip Island in the IR01 machines. It should be a really, really fun one out there. Phillip Island, it's a really, really unique circuit, and for those types of cars, it might be a bit more chaotic than I think some drivers are hoping for. As lights are out on the pace car, ready to go back green, and you mentioned it. What can Andrew Berry do from second? He's been fighting with Barros the entire race, and really, if he gets a jump here on Owens, that could get him to the lead. But now we have to see. He's right on the gearbox of Jason Owens, and it's Jason Owens' field to lead as he gets a perfect jump out of turn 4. Green flag is back in the air. What can Jack Ashton and Servi Seppa can do? Seppa looks to the inside of Simon Fell. Fell did not get a good restart at all. He's already backed up much of the field. Is around the outside. I believe that's Barb in the number 7 machine looking racing, and Olsen Walsh, who was involved in that earlier accident with Andreas taking hard contact into the wall for Seppa. And there goes spinning around goes Campbell. That was not Barb, excuse me. Frederick Campbell spinning around outside the dog leg, and we're under yellow yet again.
All of this is just, well, I guess it's free positions for the likes of Walsh and Ashton, which they're happy about, but it is taking time off the clock. Here's another look at it then. 5 car following through nicely at that stage. Pressure coming from Ashton. Ashton to the inside, a little out wide, gets up on that less grippy part of the circuit. He spins around, and Campbell ultimately kind of followed him and just ended up getting caught up in it all.
I want to see an onboard of that because I think that was just a major overcorrection. I don't think he had expected it to snap back like it did. So riding on board, here's with Seppa, just understeer and just bang. Just a little, that back end came out a little bit, and just that little correction, costly for Serbi Seppa. And again, Jack Ashton avoids disaster, and same with Olsen Walsh because he was in that scrap as well. Unfortunately for Frederick Campbell, he did not avoid that accident. He's in a pit road. Serbi Seppa not even wanting to really run anymore after that accident, has taken it to the garage, and he is likely done for the day, and will probably finish down in P maybe 16. We still have a lot of lapped cars running, trying to make up positions.
Oh, this is
again, this is
scary.
on Ted Frederickal.
There was absolutely nothing he could do. He was already out a little bit high on the race circuit, so he would have had to lift, probably lose a couple positions, but it probably wouldn't have been that bad had the incident not occurred ahead of him.
No, and you already see what like an instant correction is done. Like a little bit of correction right there has sent Seppa into the wall. We saw Olsen Walsh try and avoid the spinning Andreas Eek and get himself collected. You can't make those sudden movements and avoids, and I think unfortunately for Frederick Campbell, he kind of accepted his fate. He had looked Barb to the inside, so that was not helping him. There's really nowhere for him to go, and hopefully we can get repaired and get back out on the track, as we now have 9 cars on the lead lap. Arturo Armoro in the 11 is the last one of them. Frank Newen was involved in an earlier accident. He's 1 lap down. Frederick Campbell still on pit road. Seppa has taken it to the garage. Pierre Bourdon, who was involved in the caution previous to this one in the 18 machine, is 6 laps down, along with Andreas Eek, who spun out in the caution before that one from the lead of the race. And the first caution of the day involving Klein, Doyle, and Statelli, they're 15, 16, and 18. Still on pit road is Aaron Roofs, who had a violent collision with the inside wall after brief contact with Jack Ashton. He's still on pit road, 18 laps down. So now we have 20 to go. We haven't had much green flag racing. What's the strategy here from everyone in the top 5?
Oh, I mean, it's going to get tricky, isn't it? Because the top 5 just about includes Jack Ashton, who we know is quick, and despite not having many racing laps, has been coming through the field very efficiently. So, in the case of Jason Owens, I think he's got to try and make a gap to those 2nd, 3rd, 4th positions. If Berry and Barrios want to hold on to podium positions, I think they're going to need to get their elbows out, get a little bit wider, a bit defensive to Ashton, and also to Walsh, who'll be coming through. Simon Fell, good luck, Simon. That's all I have. You currently sitting P4. You're going to have a couple quick guys behind you, and you got Berry and Barrios dueling it out just ahead. He's in a bit of an awkward spot in that Williams-inspired livery.
Yeah, he didn't get a great restart last time. That ended up stacking up the field, and I think that's where everyone got a little antsy in that collision with Seppa and Campbell started, was that Everyone's kind of stacked up from that restart, but now we stack them up again. We re-rack them with 19 to go. It'll be 18 to go when we cross the line. Jason Owens has been leading since the Andreas Eek spun. And here he goes in the number 16 machine. Jack Ashton already finds a gap on Simon Fell to pass him, and that is legal. You can pass on the outside, which is why you see those cars all the way up against the wall. Just perfect timing from the 12 machine. Fell is now trying to fight off Barb, and Barb has now fallen into P5 as Fell has now fallen to Walsh. And here comes Jack Ashton. He's got Barry, Barros, and Owens in front of him, and he's got fresher rubber with 17 to go this time by.
Yeah, and immediately you could see Barrios and Berry fighting, which had just slowed them all up. Surprisingly, Jason Owens didn't get away throughout all of this. There's the 7 car. That is Loic Barb. He has now found a way past Simon Fell. Simon, who fell down the order after that restart. He got yet another slow one. So that's what he'll be working on for future races.
And the lack of grip is probably not helping him, as I don't think that 15 is down pit road. And not to mention also the 16 and the 6 have been down pit road quite early on in the race. Their rubber is significantly older from Jack Ashton, as there is the blue Fordzilla driver, and somehow Olsen Walsh, despite getting in contact with Andreas Eek earlier on in the race, is in P5, is right behind Jack Ashton, but here comes Andrew Berry. He's been fighting with Marino Barros in the 14. Old Race Long now has a shot at the win and the lead. He has Jason Owens, who has been fantastic so far this race. Really consistent, really clean, really smooth, no unnecessary risks. Does the 16 have to get really defensive to keep the 6 behind? Or does he just play the waiting game and wait sees Ashton and Walsh on the gearbox? Oh,
it's going to be tricky, isn't it? Owens there definitely didn't leave the door open for Berry. But throughout all this time, as you mentioned, Ashton and Walsh getting ever closer. Walsh setting the fastest lap of the race just a couple laps ago. Now the 1 car on the inside of Ashton, making that fresher rubber work. That's a relatively simple maneuver, and Ashton needs to cling onto those coattails now so that they can both close up onto this lead group.
Now, if they do have the broadcast going, as I see Andrew Berry diving down to the inside to get Owens, I'm going to say to both of them, don't fight each other, boys. There's a race win on the line. As Berry, does he get clear? Barely, maybe by a hair's width of Jason Owens. Andrew Berry is now in the lead, and the 14 of Barros is now next on the list to try and get around Jason Owens. Owens is going to have a big slipstream there. The Action Sim Sport driver, Berry, doesn't really play too defensive as Owens goes back to the inside. Can he get him clear around this corner? Yes, he can. Owens back to the lead, and here comes Barros to the inside. And, you know, maybe I should tell the other 3 that you also should stop fighting. There's 2 faster cars right behind you in Olsen Walsh and Jack Ashton, and they are not going to make it easy on you for the rest of the way. We had up to 11 laps to go. Here comes Walsh. Big run on the outside. He's back into the podium places. Berry now to the inside of Owens. They're swapping the lead back and forth, but you can't keep doing that as here comes Walsh. He's hungry, and he's charging back towards the front.
Look how much speed he carries through the dogleg there. The number 1 car is going to make short work of Jason's Owens. Owens simply got no chance. He's going to try and cling on around the outside. He'll get a slightly better toe off of Berry as well. But ultimately, he's left high and dry once again, and Walsh is back up into 2nd position.
Now Owens has to be careful. Barros is now looking underneath him. Jack Ashton has been at the tail end of this group and just has not been able to get around that 14 of Barros. The one running wide, Andrew Berry, is now the leader as he's going to lead him this time by. Ashton takes 4th position away from Barros, and defensive goes the 6th machine. There was a door open, and Andrew Berry said, I'm going to slam it in your face, Olsen Walsh. As Walsh is fast, little bit of contact right there. The front wing getting to the inside of the 6th machine. He has to get out of the throttle. Here comes Jack Ashton. He is dispatched of Jason Owens, and Owens falls to 4th. Walsh to the inside of Andrew Berry. Does Berry get defensive again, or does he let him go by? He knows he's there, and Olsen Walsh, from that earlier era of spinning when Andreas Eek was right in front of him, there was nothing he really could do to avoid the spinning 2 machine, is now back to the lead of this race. But here comes Jack Ashton, and there's also lap traffic. So this last 8 laps is going to get really chaotic, as there is Frank Newen. He doesn't really get out of the way. He's going to be really in the way going into 1. Andrew Berry to the outside. They're 3 wide. And oh my goodness, caution is now out. And I get a chance to let Tom talk and let my voice rest.
I was going to say at some point during that, Berry is not going to give this one up without a fight. He is having the race of his life at the front of this one for a second. There's only 7 to go after this caution period, so he's right there or thereabouts. He'll have an opportunity to go for the win, assuming you can keep Walsh close enough after the restart. Ashton, I believe he might have gone in for tyres. The gap suddenly opened. That's unfortunate for Campbell. That's his second little spin of the evening. So kept it out of the wall though, which is fair enough. And now the safety car back out on track. Berry trying to keep temperature in those old tyres, and Ashim Walsh says, I got confidence, just cruising around.
Yeah, Berry, it does say on the forum page whenever they post a weekly race, no blocking. We can discuss what Andrew Berry did, if it was blocking or not, but that was like firm defense. And this is, Andrew, he's a driver that's been here every week. He's been running around the midfield, maybe not towards the front with, Walsh, Sainz, and Ashton, but he's showing right now that he's going to be an aggressive driver, and he's not going to give this win up easily. Even the guys that have been running at the field that have been much faster than him on pace most of the race, he didn't really get dropped by Olsen Walsh as we kind of expected. And Jack Ashton also did not move to that field as quickly as we expected. I think their tires are starting to wear off.
Yeah, Ashton made that early pit stop, remember, so although they are newer, they're not new by any stretch of the imagination. And Berry, tell you what, if determination is worth any amount of time per lap, you'll have every single 10th of it, because as soon as he went a little bit high, a little bit wide, I thought, you know what, Walsh is gone. He's going to go. Ashton's a little bit too far back. This is Oshin's race to lose now. But he didn't. He just didn't for one reason or another. Somehow Berry was able to carry speed all the way around the top line and then just drop in for a nice little slipstream. And although he came under pressure from Ashton, we then got the caution Ewan into the pits there. Not to worry, remember, he's not actually running P3. He's down in 10th position, so fresh tyres for him. And we get potentially a little sprint to the line, just to, as if we needed any more drama tonight.
And you saw in that graphic right there, Andrew Berry's P11 and his kind of worked his way up through the field. Contenders have been falling out behind him, and he's been aggressive, but he's been clean. That number 6 machine hasn't gotten in anything, and neither has Marino Barros, who's been fighting with the whole time, as Jason Owens was in the lead at the last caution, as unfortunately dropped to 5th position. What can he do from there? As we're going to re-rack them, and I think we're going to get one to go this time by. And now we have Walsh, Berry, Ashton, Barros, Owens, and there's still a fight at the edge of the top 10 for some of those points. Simon Fell, did fall off and was passed by Barb, but got back around the number 7 machine, is now in 6th place. Like Barb in 7 for the number 7. Durkix, who was towards the rear of the field at the start of this race, I think started at the rear of the field for the 17, is in 8th, and Armro is the last car in the lead lap. Nguyen, Bourdon, Ike, Klein, Campbell, and Doyle are the cars laps down due to crashes or incidents. We've lost 3 people from this race: Servi Seppa, Aaron Roofs, and Daniel Satili. As now the lights are out, it's just going to be a 2-lap mad dash, I think.
Yeah, and I was just looking at the statistics there. Andrew L. Berry, 3rd place this week in overall points earned. 1 start, 1 win. If there was ever a man who apparently has got the grips on an oval versus where he's normally on a road circuit, it would appear to be Andrew L. Berry in Division 2, and yet he's up there fighting with the real championship contenders this week. Credit to him, no matter how this one ends up.
This will be the final restart. No green-white checkered, as we often see in the NASCAR side of things, as Olsen Walsh lines him down for the final time. Pace car is now ducked onto pit road. Can Olsen Walsh hold the lead? It's going to be green flag back into the air. There are going to be 2 laps remaining as we cross the finish line. Berry got an okay restart. Again, that leader has been jumping out every single time, and he's going to have the draft in his favor. Jack Ashton is right behind. And again, these guys are on older tires. The grip is low. What can these drivers? Berry looking to the inside of Walsh.
Oh,
not able to do it. Ashton is around. Hard into the wall goes Jack Ashton, and that will do it for the race. Walsh will come home first. Berry will come home second. And on the podium, Marino Barrios in the 14 machine. Oh, Jack Ashton, what has happened? He loses the rear end and right into the outside wall. Heavy, heavy impact for the Fordzilla machine. And unfortunately, that is his day done. He'll be able to limp home maybe in P9 because it is the final lap, and it's just going to be the rear stepping out on him right here.
It's going to be the exact same. It's going to be the exact same. He's pushing hard to try and get the move done. Rear steps out. He tries to make the correction. On this occasion, cannot, and the car just keeps on going round. But it's that consistent mistake that we've seen. Just push a little bit too hard. You go a little bit off the racing line. The rear steps out, and one way or another, you're ending up in the wall.
So we cross the finish line. Olseen Walsh will take home the win. And Jack Ashton, it looks like, will finish a lowly P9. After that, Andreas Eek also had a similar error as Olseen Walsh got involved into that crash when Andreas Eek, when he spun out at turn 4. There was nothing Walsh and Eek could do. He spun around, lost the front wing, hit the rear wing on the wall, got repairs, was able to climb his way back through the field. It was a solid drive from the number 1 machine.
It was. It was absolutely lovely. He was up there at the beginning, got caught up in that incident with Ike, of course, and then clawed his way through position by position. Every time he had a green flag lap, he made up a position. And you got to say, deserving, and also congratulations to Barrios, who until now started twice and only finished inside the top 5 once. So fantastic race from Mariano.
So Walshberry and Barrios line up your podium. Barb in the number 7 gets to P4. Simon Fell is not able to defend from Barb, but gets a top 5 finish for the 15. A good result for him. Durkix in P6. Armro in P7. Jason Owens on that last restart fell behind and unfortunately finishes P8. He led about 20 laps in that middle stint. Jack Ashton, slap crash, demotes him all the way down to P9. Frank Newen was just kind of a victim of circumstances. There was cars in front of him spinning all over the place, couldn't avoid it, got collected in P10. And here is the list of kind of the unfortunate victims of Phoenix International Raceway. Pierre Boudon spun out on the outside of turn 3 and 4. Heavy contact into the wall. Andreas Eek on the exit of turn 4 from the lead of the race. Spun, rear suspension, had to stay in pit for an extended period of time. Paul Klein was involved in that first crash on way back, I believe on lap 9, comes home 12 laps down in P13. Frederick Campbell, unable to avoid spinning car in front of him, has to come down pit road and then spun out again, more damage, P14. Tim Doyle involved in that first crash in the number 3 machine in P15. Sergio Seppa lost it on the outside. Nowhere for him to go into the outside wall in P16. Aaron Roof's massive contact with the inside wall after collision with Jack Ashton finishes in P17. And Daniel Satelli was the number 4 machine that got loose on lap 9. Heavy contact into the turn 4 barrier. Finishes in 18th. So that should wrap up the day here at Phoenix International Raceway. And well, good news for these drivers is we have something to look forward to next week, and that is a road course. Well, maybe a little less calamity, maybe a little less of trickiness should happen, and hopefully everyone just comes out of this with their chins held high, and we can redeem some points in the following races for the rest of the week.
Yeah, it'll be a good one, won't it? Virginia never ever disappoints. It's a tricky circuit. It can be a narrow circuit at times, but it flows. It's a proper racetrack that'll offer plenty of challenges and plenty of action 1 week from now.
And we saw like the intense racing action at Suzuka, and these are long, clinching, difficult road courses. As we take a look, this was what happened to the number 8 machine earlier on in this race. It's a little contact with Jack Ashton, and pow, and right back onto the racetrack. Nothing they could do. There goes Ikes spinning out of turn 4 into the outside wall. Walsh spinning to avoid him. There he is. Pierre Boudon outside of turn 4. Heavy impact on the wall, almost back in front of Jack Ashton. Almost collecting Sergio Seppa, but Seppa would get into a collision of his own later on in the run. And here it is on the outside. That overcorrects, slams the outside wall. Nothing the 9 machine could do of Campbell gets involved, and it's a vicious accident, vicious hits, and I'm sure there are several drivers that are just disappointed with this race. They were hoping perfect result, and there was really nothing a lot of them could do in many of these situations.
No, they were somewhat unavoidable. I think the perfect example of unavoidable is Frederick Campbell, who then did something very avoidable, but nicely kept it out of the wall. Credit to him. There goes Ashton as well to finish off the race. He was pushing to try and get that win that he felt he had deserved the whole time, and we just slipped away from him the same way it slipped away from Ike, and yet another contender was taken away.
And this is going to definitely impact the points, at least for Ashton, Walsh, and Ike. They have been towards the upper tier in competing for the standings. However, you mentioned it, we head to VIR next week. A little bit of change from just turning left constantly. We're going to be turning left and right in Virginia. Then Sebring, Silverstone, and Imola. And these are 4 tracks that are going to offer some really good quality racing, if it's anything like we saw at Barber and Suzuka.
Yeah, exactly. The road courses on this calendar have been absolutely incredible. The driver set that we have, they just seem so eager to fight and contest into every single left and every single right. And they're all good at different things as well, which just produces the most incredible races. So make sure you tune in for all 3 of those before we end up back at the Speedway.
At the last oval on the schedule will be USA Speedway, but that's not until February. But once again, next week, we're not turning left and right. So we'll wrap up our coverage here from ISMN Speedway. It was a chaotic race. Congratulations to Oisin Walsh for the win. If you're interested in more racing action, really don't go anywhere on RaceSpotTV coming up after this. Again, the IR01s from Phillip Island, the Friday night primetime slot will be next. But we'll be back with you next week from Virginia. For me, for Tom Davis, for Tyler Maxton, as well as the cams provided by Isterman Bello and Track Cams 22, we say so long and have a great weekend.